Secretary General, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
You visited families and victims of the terror attacks in Christchurch today. What did you tell them?
Well, first of all, this is my annual visit of solidarity in Ramadan. Every year I visit a Muslim community during the holy months of Ramadan to express my solidarity. And I believe that no other place in the world would be more adequate for this solidarity visit than this community, the Muslim community of Christchurch. So it was an expression of solidarity, an expression, of course, of grief and condolences, but more than anything else, an expression of admiration. I think the reaction of this community was absolutely wonderful. The forgiveness, the tolerance, the openness that they've shown, which, by the way, was matched by the New Zealander people as a whole, that has shown a resilience, a compassion, and a feeling of unity and solidarity that was absolutely remarkable. As remarkable were also the initiatives of the government, in principle in relation to the gun control, and now in relation to the international efforts in order to make sure that we are able to control hate speech in, namely, social media platforms.
And let's discuss that, because Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is currently in Paris trying to convince these tech giants to play a more important role in the fight against terrorism and hate speech. Do you think she will be successful, given the fact that some are already saying this trip to Paris will be nothing more than a talk fest?
No, I think the environment is created for the companies that have a responsibility because they provide a global public good. I think they need to abide by what are, for me, absolutely vital norms of respect. And hate speech is spreading like wildfire in the social media, and it needs to be extinguished.
What then is the difference between hate speech and free speech, in your view? Can you give me an example of hate speech?
Well, if you have neo-Nazi expressions like blood and soil, like let's get rid of the Jews in our community and things of the sort, which we have seen recently, as you know, in the United States, or expressions, all Muslims need to be eradicated and things of the sort, but it has nothing to do with the freedom of expression. I mean,
no, it's not.
Obviously, people have the right to express their own opinions about political opinions, to have their own ideologies, but this kind of targeting with hate communities and pushing for acts of aggression as barbarous and as horrendous as the one that we had in Christchurch are not acceptable. Now, we are not in a situation in which, like in the past, we could easily create the conditions for an international convention to approve international law. It would take 5 years, and then ratification would take 2 years. Now it's a time in which we need more sophisticated forms of control, with the cooperation of governments, of the industry, of researchers, of the civil society, with soft law, with ethical standards, with protocols that the industry itself accepts. Because, I mean, it's a matter of exercise of corporate social responsibility, and it's something in which we all need to cooperate.
Why do you think we are seeing, or the perception is we are seeing, an increase of terrorist attacks globally around places of worship? Do you blame the internet for that, or is it deeper than that?
Now, what you are seeing is, in today's world, more and more, for many reasons, for many frustrations, for many forms of anger. I mean, globalization has been an enormous benefit for many, but some were left behind. We see inequalities growing. We see communities feeling threatened. We see the lack of capacity sometimes of governments to manage human mobility. So there are many reasons that are creating conditions in which we see populist parties, nationalist parties, social movements of this kind. They are not terrorists in themselves. They are normal forms of expression of opinions. I can be in disagreement with them, but I wouldn't be asking to forbid all parties that are more populist or that express a more nationalistic view. The point is that that creates the kind of environment As, for instance, the same happens with some more extreme forms of conservative Islam, that creates the kind of environment in which it is easy for some that are, I mean, either with some mental problem or with less capacity of recognizing what is good and what is bad. Mainstream environment creates a situation in which it's relatively easy for the eruption of these kinds of terrorist activities by individuals that, of course, we should not in any way put in parallel with the mainstream forces, but that are now proliferating. And we see these lone wolf attacks.
With white supremacy groups that we see popping up across the globe at the moment, though, do you worry that even though Facebook appears to be shutting them down, doesn't that send them further underground and then we can't expose them? And could that be even more dangerous because authorities simply don't know what they're doing because we can't see their weird, warped, nutty ideology online?
Now, we need to do lots of things. We need to address the root causes of these, and we need to act in relation to communities, to strengthen the resilience of communities, to create conditions in which communities have the capacity to protect themselves in relation to these situations. So it's not only a question of hate speech in social media, it is a whole strategy in relation to hate speech and in relation to the forms of violent extremism. And we have, in the UN today, developed a prevention system for violent extremism. We are working with many countries around the world, with national programs, with regional programs, aiming exactly at creating the conditions to make societies more resilient and not to allow these forms of expression to naturally emerge from those societies. Of course, what is true is that the internet and the platforms that are at the service of social media can be a fantastic instrument of progress, a fantastic instrument for good, but can also be utilized by terrorist organizations or by these more radical groups.
Just finally, how successful do you think the UN global strategy against terrorism will be that I know you launched several months ago? How will you know that it's been successful?
Well, we are working with lots of countries. We have seen in many situations where terrorist attacks were occurring with a certain frequency, that's coming down in certain parts of the world, but we are far from considering that we have reached the level of efficiency that we need.
And finally, your message for Christchurch people today watching this?
It's a message of enormous admiration, enormous solidarity. This is a community that really proves that in the world, good not only must prevail, but good can prevail. The Christchurch people is a fantastic community. I pay tribute to their solidarity, generosity, their unity.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All the best. Thank you very much.